what was the specific sound that caused his healing? The king was sick, very sick for some time, and nothing and no one could relieve him of his sickness. Listen to what happened next. How the king got better. Saul had disobeyed God's instructions, and so God had rejected him from being king. This, of course, caused the king to become uneasy, deeply depressed, and worried, all of which caused him to be physically aggressive. Without God's support, the king had become possessed by an evil spirit. It was a troubling spirit that, of course, caused him to worry, and we know that worrying makes people sick. This well-known event is recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verses 14 to 23. King Saul had become spiritually, emotionally, and physically sick. Consequently, his servants sought out a musician to play for him. David, a harper, was called to play for the king. Interestingly, whenever David played, the king would recover from his illness. Was there a special note, interval, chord, or cadence that David played, the sound of which healed the king? Was it the calm, soothing sounds of the harp that healed Saul? Certainly, the harp played an important role, but what really healed the king? Before I continue, please give us a like and follow us for more on healing and the harp. Thank you. To further address Saul's healing, let us look more closely at what caused his sickness. These are the three main things that Saul did wrong to cause his demise. 1. Saul refused to follow all of God's given instructions. He followed some, but not all of them. 2. Saul executed his own plan in place of God's plan, dishonoring God's authority. 3. Saul argued that what he did would serve the people and the kingdom better than what God had commanded, sadly putting himself above God. Now back to David playing his harp to heal Saul. Notice that Saul's healing was temporary, since David was recalled to the assignment multiple times. Also, be reminded that God had rejected Saul, and an evil spirit had possessed him. So obviously, when David played his harp, the evil spirit must have left Saul and then returned sometime afterwards. That accounted for the repeated episodes of relief followed by sickness again. What did David do on the harp that caused the evil spirit to flee? Some are searching for that special sound that scares evil spirits. Was the evil spirit afraid of a certain note, interval, chord, or cadence that David played? Was the evil spirit afraid of the calm, relaxing sounds of the harp? What did David do on his harp? Based on all the information on David regarding the harp, we know the following. 1. David, who was anointed under God's instruction, was living in the blessing of his anointment. 2. David kept the laws of God in his heart. In fact, he took great delight both in declaring and doing the laws of God. 3. David was a man after God's own heart. That means he sought out God's ways and followed them. 4. David used the harp in prophesying, signaling his trust in God's words. 5. David also used the harp in praising and declaring all of God's attributes, his creative power, his healing power, his faithfulness, and all his ways. 6. David, like others, used the harp to make joyful sounds that made the heart happy. And according to Proverbs 17, verse 22, a merry heart does good like medicine. 7. David was a skilled musician. Being a skilled harpist might not necessarily mean that he was an expert at playing the harp, but rather more that he was competent at using the harp for multiple godly purposes. David was gifted by God in using the harp in many ways in his service. Therefore, using all these mentioned skills and qualities that he possessed, David created an atmosphere of holiness while playing for Saul that expelled the evil spirit. We see in Matthew chapter 8, verse 29, that when the evil spirits that possessed a certain man saw Jesus, they knew that they had to flee his presence immediately. Otherwise, they would feel tormented by his presence. Consequently, they asked Jesus to send them into some nearby swine. Consider also that the harp is a symbol of victory over sin and rejoicing and ultimate healing for the redeemed. According to Revelation chapter 15, verses 2 to 4, those who conquer the evils of this world through Jesus, our deliverer, will receive harps of God with which to celebrate, singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. The sessions that David had with Saul must have helped him to focus on hope in the restoration of righteousness in his own life, repentance, and his complete acceptance of God's authority and judgment. However, whenever Saul shifted his focus to himself and his lost position, he became tormented by the thought again, giving opportunity for the evil spirit to return and trouble him. Unfortunately, Saul never completely let go of his lost position. He wanted it back so badly that he consulted a witch. Yes, he sought out other gods. Sadly, he turned his back on God and later perished in battle. Then David became king of Israel in his place. Click on the link in this video to another video by the Open Bible Harpist and leave a comment, please. Thank you.